So, where should the most fundamental decisions about the place you live actually be made?
Right.
I mean, should they be handled on the ground by the people who really know the local traffic, the schools, or should those big choices be centralized, hundreds of miles away at the state capitol?
Well, that tension is pretty much the entire focus of our deep dive today. The
Mhm.
core concept we're talking about is home rule. Home rule in Florida is basically the power your county commission or city council has to govern locally.
Okay.
It just means they can make their own rules and provide services as long as the state hasn't specifically said, no, you can't do that.
It's what allows a community to feel like that community, right? To manage its own growth or set its own standards.
Exactly. But based on the sources you shared, that entire system is under some of the most intense pressure we've seen in a long, long time.
Yeah. And that's our mission today. We're going to analyze this stack of materials you sent over, all detailing these legislative challenges coming up in the 2026 Florida session.
And we're really focusing on these newly filed bills that target local control over things like land use, these mega developments, and even what happens after a disaster.
And the stakes here couldn't be higher, especially if you're in a fast-growing area like, say, St. Johns County, which is dealing with both rapid development and coastal risks.
Mm-hmm.
The sources you have show that what's happening in Tallahassee right now could directly decide how your neighborhood gets built, what rules your local government can actually enforce, and how you recover after a storm. So, okay, let's unpack this.
We have to start with the basic idea behind home rule. The philosophy is that the people closest to a problem are usually the ones best equipped to solve it.
That makes sense.
If a county has, a fragile aquifer or historic buildings to protect, the local government should be able to make specific rules for that.
Right. But to really understand what's coming in 2026, we have to look back. The sources all point to the groundwork being laid last year in the 2025 session,
That context is absolutely vital. It all started with a bill called SB 180.
the Emergency Management Bill.
That's the one. It was framed publicly as a way to speed up permits and debris cleanup after hurricanes. But its effect was much, much broader.
Okay.
According to one of the sources, 1,000 Friends of Florida, the law basically swept in and preempted local planning authority. It froze local comprehensive plans and just stripped away the tools governments use to manage growth and flooding.
So under the banner of hurricane relief, the state limited local planning everywhere. And this isn't just theory, right? I mean, this has had real impacts.
Oh, absolutely. The state has already started rejecting or, nullifying comprehensive plans, and the sources specifically name St. Johns County and Orange County as places that have been directly affected.
And now there are lawsuits.
Correct. There are two major lawsuits happening right now, one from a group of cities and counties, and another one from 1,000 Friends of Florida, both of them basically questioning if SB 180 is even constitutional.
So that fight is happening in the courts even as the legislature is getting ready to, what, double down?
That's the perfect way to put it. 2026 isn't waiting. It's building on that SB 180 foundation with bills that are even more targeted.
Which brings us to the biggest one we found in the sources.
The unifying theme for the 2026 session seems to be centralizing control over land use. And nothing shows that better than HB 299 and its Senate companion, SB 354.
They're calling them blue ribbon projects.
Yep, BRPs.
That sounds nice, like it won an award.
Yeah.
But what is a BRP exactly?
It's the scale that's just astonishing. A BRP is defined as a large-scale mixed-use development that's at least 10,000 acres.
Wait, 10,000 acres.
10,000.
For some context, that is bigger than many entire cities in Florida. That's a city-sized project.
It is.
So if I'm a resident in St. John's, my first thought is, okay, what does our local government have to say about the traffic, the schools, the water for a project that size?
And that is where the preemption just hammers it home. The BRPs are designed to completely bypass that whole local process.
Complete.
The bill says they may be located in any future land use designation and zoning designation without the need for a comprehensive plan amendment or rezoning.
That's staggering.
Yeah.
So a county spends years, millions of dollars on a comprehensive plan, which SB 180 might have already frozen anyway.
Right.
And a BRP developer can just ignore it. The land could be designated for conservation, and this just sweeps in.
That's what the text implies, yes.
Yeah.
And it gets even more restrictive. The local government's ability to even review the proposal is severely limited.
How so?
If the BRP application just checks all the technical boxes in the state bill, the local government must approve it. administratively.
So no public hearings, no vote by the county commission.
It removes their discretion, it sidelines the local planning boards. Public input is effectively cut out of that specific approval process.
I mean, I can see the argument for efficiency, maybe, but at what cost? What's the case for removing local input entirely?
Well, the proponents argue that these huge mega developments often face a patchwork of inconsistent rules across different counties. They believe centralizing the review makes things consistent, it streamlines approvals, and it accelerates economic development and housing, which they say is badly needed. They see local zoning as a barrier to that growth.
But what if the local government does find a way to deny it? Maybe on, I don't know, an immediate public safety threat.
Right.
Where does the developer appeal?
Not to the local courts.
Ah,
Appeals for BRP denials go directly to the state's Department of Commerce. So it keeps the power centralized, ensuring the final decision is made by a state agency focused on economic goals.
so we've got preemption for planning before a disaster.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't stop there. It also deals with what happens after one.
Exactly. And that brings us to a bill that was actually filed today, December 10th, SB 840, Land Use Regulations for Local Governments Affected by Natural Disasters.
And for a coastal area like St. Johns County, this has to be incredibly important.
It is. This bill basically prohibits local governments in areas hit by a disaster from enforcing certain building moratoriums. And, critically, it limits their power to require that people rebuild to newer, stronger, more resilient standards.
So let me get this straight. If a hurricane flattens a coastal neighborhood in St. Johns, and the local council says, okay, everyone has to rebuild 2 feet higher or use stronger roofs, this bill could stop them.
It could restrict them, yes. If those new local requirements are stronger than the state minimums, their ability to enforce them might be limited.
So you're basically forced to rebuild the same vulnerabilities right back in.
That's the risk. It could increase long-term danger and, insurance costs for the whole community.
Okay, so let's shift from building and rebuilding to just day-to-day rules. The code enforcement officer, the zoning inspector. There's a bill for them too.
There is. HB 105, the Local Government Regulatory Accountability Act. And this one is fascinating because it doesn't ban local rules. It just attacks the ability to enforce them.
How does that work? It sounds kind of subtle.
It creates this new process where a business or an individual can request a mandatory state-level review if they think a local enforcement action was unfair or inconsistent.
What does that mean in practice?
It creates what experts are calling a chilling effect.
Okay.
Why would a local code inspector risk a complicated enforcement action, say, for a fire code violation or filling in a wetland, if they know their decision can just be immediately kicked upstairs to a state agency, leading to legal fees and state oversight?
So it just makes it too much of a hassle to enforce the rules. They might just let things slide.
It's an effective way to quietly weaken local authority without anyone noticing.
Okay, let's bring all this back to someone listening in St. Johns County. With all the growth and the coastal risks there, let's synthesize this. What does all of this mean for you, the resident?
Well, we can really group the impacts into 3 main areas. The first is what we could call planning paralysis. Remember, SB 180 already put their comprehensive plan in jeopardy. Now, new bills, like the BRP one, HB 299, remove the main tools zoning changes, plan amendments, that the county would use to manage that kind of sudden growth.
So if you live near a big, empty piece of land, the county might have very little power to say what goes there, no matter the impact on your roads or schools.
That's the reality. And that leads to the second problem, accelerated development speed. The ability of a 10,000-acre project to get an administrative thumbs up without local hearings or votes just fundamentally changes the pace of growth. It moves it from a controlled public process to a centralized, fast-tracked one.
And the third point is about the coast.
Yes, the long-term resilience risk.
All right.
St. Johns is a coastal county. It's vulnerable. So when SB 840 limits the county's ability to demand stronger rebuilding standards after a storm, that's a direct threat to the community's long-term safety. You're just setting yourself up for the next disaster.
It's clear the big focus here is land use. But if we zoom out, the sources show this is happening everywhere, right? It's not just about building.
That's right. When you look at the bill trackers from groups like the Florida Association of Counties, the breadth of this preemption movement it's really striking.
Give us a couple of quick examples.
Okay, so there's HB 669. It prohibits local governments from setting up public mooring fields for boats. For a community that depends on its waterways, that's a huge deal.
Oh, okay.
Then there's SB 208, which prohibits denying a residential project just because of a lack of compatibility with the neighborhood.
That's the main tool suburbs use to stop like a high-rise apartment building from going up next to single-family homes.
It is. And that same bill also restricts impact fees, which is how new development helps pay for the new roads and infrastructure it requires.
And there's even one about, what, plastic bags?
HB 629, it preempts any local rules on single-use plastics and other containers, which undercuts local environmental efforts.
So you have two sides to this. Proponents are citing economic development, cutting red tape, regulatory consistency across the state.
They argue that all these hyper-local rules just stifle business and slow down construction.
While opponents argue that these bills just gut a local government's ability to plan for its own unique future and protect its own resources. It's this classic battle.
It is, and the data from the sources is clear. The 2026 session is pushing hard for state preemption, building on what started in 2025. The debate over these bills is really going to shape the future of local government in Florida.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you to consider as you watch all this unfold. If decisions about 10,000-acre developments, disaster resilience, and even basic code enforcement are consistently centralized, what is the most valuable role left for your local county commissioner or city council member? We'd encourage you to look into those legal challenges to SB 180 and keep an eye on that blue ribbon projects bill, HB 299.
And that wraps up this deep dive into your source material.
Thank you for sharing your sources and joining us.